Red Wings Tupolev Tu-200 was flying a positioning mission from Partibus, Czech Republic, to Moscow, Russia. There were 8 crew members aboard. When it touched down at the airport in Moscow, the aircraft overran the end of the runway. 3 crew members have critical injuries and are being treated in hospitals after 5 crew members died. The journey was uneventful until the jet touched down at the Moscow airport. The crew made a good approach to runway 19 at Moscow-Vnukovo 3,060 meters, 40 feet in length, and they landed safely within the permitted landing area. The crew attempted to stop the jet before the runway's end, but was unsuccessful. The Tupolev overran the runway's end, smashed through the localizer antenna and the airport's perimeter fence, disintegrated, and came to a halt approximately 400 meters, 1,200 feet, beyond the end of the runway on elevated Highway M3. Prior to the incident, it had been snowing and there was a strong crosswind with gusts as high as 29 knots. A number appropriate for the aircraft's landing was found by measuring the runway friction coefficients using calibrated equipment 15 minutes after the accident. In Yeysk, Russia, a Russian Su-30 fighter jet collides with a residential building. On October 17, 2022, the Su-30 fighter plane from the Russian Air Force crashed into a house in Yeysk. Just before the disaster, both pilots made an emergency ejection, but there have been 15 fatalities in the structure. It was a training flight, and the catastrophe was caused by an engine fire that broke out soon after takeoff, according to Russian authorities. The jet went down around 4 kilometers km east of Yeysk Airport's runway's end. On November 23, 1996, this Ethiopian Airlines Boeing 767-260R was flying from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, to Nairobi, Kenya. There were 172 passengers and crew. 3 Ethiopians took over the plane and asked the crew to fly to Australia to ensure they could get political asylum there. The pilot told the hijackers that they only had enough fuel for the planned flight. Because of that, they couldn't even make it a quarter of the way. They didn't believe him. The pilot went to the Comoro Islands in secret. These islands are halfway between Madagascar and the African continent. The plane ran out of fuel in the end. Because of a fight with the hijackers, the crew could not land at the Comoros airport. The pilot tried to land the plane in shallow water about 500 meters from shore. The left engine and tip of the left wing hit the water first. The left engine then hit a coral reef, which quickly slowed down that side of the plane. This made the Boeing 767 spin violently to the left and break up. 122 of the 172 people on board died, as did the people who took over the plane. The other 50 were hurt, but they lived. While 2 airplanes collisioned on the ground, crew were seriously injured. May 10, 2005, after takeoff from Columbus, Ohio, the crew of the DC-9-51 reported a loss of right hydraulic system fluid quantity during the climb to cruise. The aircraft cleared the runway after touching down at Minneapolis St. Paul International Airport and started taxiing to its gate. The crew reported a complete loss of steering and brakes shortly after that. The right wing of a Northwest A319 that was moving back off the gate was struck by the aircraft. The DC-9's cockpit crew members sustained significant injuries, but none of the other passengers were hurt. Amsterdam-8 crash landing. Amsterdam, February 23, 2017. A Flybe Hadeland-8-400 conducting flight carrying 59 passengers from Edinburgh, Scotland, to Amsterdam, Netherlands, had a hard landing on its right main landing gear. Strong winds with a 20 crosswind were gusting at 46 knots. Right main gear collapsed upon landing. Although there were no injuries, the aircraft was severely damaged. Delhi landing of a Boeing 767 in Poland. The 1st of November 2011, at Warsaw Airport, in Poland. This LOT Airlines Boeing 767-35 conducted a gear-up landing. No one was hurt when there were 230 people on board. The aircraft originated in Newark, New Jersey, USA. The airplane's hydraulic system failed during the journey. The crew was able to deploy the landing flaps as the aircraft approached runway 33 in Warsaw, but they were unable to drop the undercarriage. At 2,750 feet, the aircraft went into a holding pattern because the gear was unable to deploy. The crew made the choice to belly land. Hawkins and Powers Aviation Hercules C-130 plane crashed in Walker, California, USA. The airplane was delivering fire retardant material on a 10-acre forest fire near Walker, California, on June 17, 2002. This Hercules C-130 crashed. The aircraft's wings abruptly detached, causing it to crash close to a business area. All 3 members of the crew perished. The examination revealed that the aircraft was likely flown within the maximum takeoff gross weight restrictions listed in the flight handbook. The NTSB came to the conclusion that the right wing's in-flight breakdown as a result of fatigue cracking in the center wing's lower skin and supporting structural components is the accident's most likely cause. Insufficient maintenance measures to find fatigue cracking were a significant cause in the disaster. A Boeing 747 bomb exploding. In this Boeing B-747, explosives have been stacked to replicate a high-altitude bomb detonation 200 grams of Semtex. In order to mimic an explosion at a height of 30,000 feet, the aircraft was pressurized.